I have a sticky note above my computer that has my priorities on it. So things that I'm really focusing on this quarter at this moment, the priorities that I choose. And so I can be clear about what I'm saying no to so that I can go really big on my priorities.
Are you a corporate escapee and wasting valuable time attempting to figure challenges out on your own? Well, this podcast is for you. We bring you firsthand experiences of guests going through many of the struggles you face each and every day.
We get real with no corporate BS.
And now, over to your host, Paul Higgins.
Hello and welcome to Corporate Escapees. Our podcast is someone today who started their career in engineering in essential services. Then they moved to corporate support at Google. They ran a little bit of a side hustle because they were getting lots of interest in career development and they knew they were really good at that. Now they actually help analytical-minded people to find their dream career. So what I'll do is hand you over to Lindsay Gordon from A Life of Options. Welcome, Lindsay Gordon from A Life of Options to the Corporate Escapee podcast brought to you by Build, Live, Give. So welcome, Lindsay.
Thank you so much.
Great to have you here. So why don't we start with something your family or friends would know about you that we wouldn't?
Yes, I have so many interests and I am immensely curious. So I take professional baking courses for fun. I sing in a women's barbershop quartet. I've taken classes in calligraphy and trapeze and Mandarin and floral arrangement and a lot more. So I love, love, love learning.
Brandon, how do you fit it all in?
Got to make choices, So I try to do some of them at some point and then, switch to other interests.
Great. And I know you've had a, brilliant career working with, some household names like Google, etc. But why don't you just talk us through a bit of your corporate escapee story?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm on my third career at this point. My degree is actually in engineering, and I worked in recycled water engineering for a little bit. And then I fell into technical support at Google and actually found that I love customer service. And then I, really never had a plan to run my own business. When I was working at Google, I worked with a lot of onboarding and training of new hires, and they were coming in kind of stressed about their career, unsure how to think about, meeting with their manager and thinking about career development. So I moved over into a more career development focused role, and people started saying, you would be a great coach. Have you ever thought about coaching? And I actually had no idea what that meant. So I decided to test it out, took one class, absolutely fell in love with it, and ended up doing a 1.5 long program. And then again, still had no desire to run my own business. That was not in the plans, but people kept coming up to me and saying, are you taking clients yet? Are you ready for me to refer people to you? So I ended up kind of having an accidental side business, I like to call it.
Yes.
And ran that for about a year. And then at that point decided that I really wanted to make the move to full-time. And that was about 2.5 years ago now.
Brilliant. Excellent. And I always ask people, was it easier or harder when you finally made that jump?
Yeah, this is such a good question because I think a lot of times we think about taking the leap into entrepreneurship as being a really big risky thing and a huge leap. For me, I think I de-risked it in so many ways by just testing out coaching, by trying, doing career things internally, by running it as a side business. And so for me, actually, the transition to full-time business did not feel that risky because I had tried out so many different versions of it leading up to it.
Brilliant. And what was the key decision point for you to finally leave? You'd had both, I suppose, a really successful career and this side hustle. What was the turning point for you to say, no, look, I'm going to do this full time?
Yeah, great question. I think one of the things for me that I love about running my own business is getting to choose who I work with. And so I just found that the people that I was working with outside of work were so excited and grateful to be working with me. And it was such a wide variety of people, kind of a wider audience that I got to work with at Google. So I think that was part of it. And I think towards the end of my time at Google, there were things that were missing for me out of a job. And I really didn't get as much kind of challenge and growth that I was looking for. And that was something that I was really getting in the side business at that time.
Great. And for the 2.5 years that you have been running the business by yourself, what's some of the help that you've got along the way?
So much help. There have been things like local resources, like the Small Business Administration and SCORE. They had a lot of fantastic free classes that I took early on to learn about how to run my business. I have had so many conversations with successful business owners who are a couple years ahead of me, who were gracious enough to give me some of their time to talk to me about, what mistakes I might be making in the beginning. I've worked with a business coach. I have a very supportive husband. I also had friends who were also launching businesses at the same time, which was also a great kind of set of support.
Brilliant. Well, we'll go now into the build section. So when someone asks, hey, Lindsay, what do you do for a living? How do you answer that?
I say that I am a career coach for analytically minded people. And the reason I say that is because it's pretty unusual to find a career coach who has an engineering background. And my aim really is to help people feel confident in their decisions. That is what I am up to in this world.
Great. And can you give us an example? Give us, obviously not a client's name, but give an example that recently you've helped so we can understand how it works.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I do is to help people put together this framework of what is it actually that works for them in a job. So that involves kind of knowing their strengths and their values, the activities that give and drain their energy, what they're actually looking for so that they can be at their best. And so, for example, one client that I had last week, his manager ended up leaving. And, a lot of people had been asking him, do you want your manager's job? And he's really, thinking about it a lot. And after we started working together, he said that he just had this, after 3 seconds of being asked this question, do you want your manager's job? He just felt a deep grounded and confidence, like, actually, this is not the right job for me. And I know that it's because of these 3 particular reasons. So he was able to make a decision quickly without any of that, second guessing, that chaos, that energy draining waffling, that, being distracted by things that other people think that you should do. He just had this deeply calm experience of, oh, I don't actually think this is the right fit for me for these particular reasons.
Great. And what do you know about career coaching that many of us listening don't?
I would say that most of us don't have any clue what we're doing and don't have a long-term plan. So, I say that to give people confidence if they don't feel like they have it all figured out, if they don't know what their plan is. It's kind of join the club. All of us are figuring out what we want and being curious and learning about our interests and, making choices and changing our minds. So I think that's really something that I find is that, yeah, we're all in this, trying to figure out what we're going to be when we grow up.
Great. And I know you got a lot of your first customers by the sounds of it through your great connections with Google, but how did you find your first customers outside of your network?
Yeah, I was so excited about what I was learning around career coaching that I was talking to everybody about it. And I would, offer to do exercises with them. And so actually one of my first clients was one of my husband's earliest school friends. He happened to be visiting. He asked me if he could do an exercise. And then, a couple of weeks later, he reached back out and said, actually, that was really meaningful. I would love to work with you. So I worked with spouses of friends. I worked with a neighbor in my apartment building that I ran into. So really kind of anyone and everyone that was connected to me.
Great. And who's your ideal client now?
Yeah. So I love working with anybody who is uninspired or feeling crushed by their job. So anyone who feels like they've fallen into the job they're in and they haven't really been intentional up until now, and they actually want to start choosing their next steps. And, oftentimes there is this kind of energy draining waffle of, should I leave? Should I stay? Should I change careers? Should I take the leap? And so I love working with people who want to be able to make a really clear and confident decision in those situations.
Right. And do you see any trends between those different options? Are people, staying in careers? Are people, leaving like you and I have? Or what's your experience with the people you're working with so far?
It's so fascinating to me because I think I have all different kinds of outcomes. On one end of the spectrum, there are absolutely people that find that even though they've been really stressed and unfulfilled in their current job, we actually learn that it's a great fit for their strengths and for their values and what's important to their life at the moment. And so with some changes and with some mindset shift, they actually find that they do want to stay in their job and it is a great fit for them. On the other end of the spectrum, I have people who are, project managers who have always wanted to do visual design for video games is something we discover. And so they're making the change to a completely new field and figuring out how do you do that in a sustainable way. And then there's pretty much everything in between. Some people decide that their job is not a great fit for the long term, but they understand what it gives them for the short term. And so they'll start working towards being able to make that change in the longer term.
Yeah, and I interviewed someone, and a lot of our listeners are from the US, where here in Australia, and I know you're originally from Australia, that your health insurance isn't tied to your job.
Mm-hmm.
But in the US, I hear that it is. Like, does that in any way impact people's decisions on whether they go out on their own or not?
Absolutely. I think it's a huge reality. And especially if you don't have, a supportive partner that you can be on their insurance, I think it does really play into it and the realities of choosing to be a business owner in the US.
Yeah. And because I've heard, it can be what is equal or greater than your mortgage payment each month. So for people that, any tips on ways that you find out the impact that it'd have on you?
Good question. I don't know really well because I luckily have a husband with wonderful health insurance. So I have been privileged enough to not have to navigate that system. But I'm sure that there are probably some great online resources about small business owners and insurance choices.
Great. And your business, Lindsay, what will it look like in 3 years' time? What's take us to that point and what does it look like?
Such a good question. I think, I'm somebody who loves the implementation phase, just like, let's do it now, execute, execute, execute. So it's such a good question for me to think about. The challenge that I'm experiencing right now is really thinking about scale. So I have 14 clients right now, and I only have so many hours in my day. So I think in 3 years from now, it's really going to look like, how do I scale effectively? Because I want as many people as possible to feel really confident about these decisions and feel like they have agency and choice in their career. So it might look like converting my system to an online system that can be scaled. It might look like hiring additional people. It might look like group programs. So I'm kind of exploring what it's going to look like over the next couple of years, but I'm hoping that scale is going to be a big focus down the line.
Brilliant. And around your profitability, how have you gone to improve your profitability over the last 2.5 years, or what have you done to improve it?
Yeah, I think I have made the very common progression from working with clients hourly to creating a packaged system. So that's something that happens a lot with coaches. Consistently raising rates, I think, is a great thing to focus on, and it can feel hard. And, it's good to have reminders from other business owners of like, hey, when's the last time you raised your rates? You're getting smarter and you're having a lot of impact, and making sure that your rates align with that. And corporate workshops is something that I've been exploring recently, which is great for profitability. And then, as I mentioned, kind of looking at these scaled options.
Great. And what's the number one source of new leads for your business today?
Definitely word of mouth. I have such great referrals from existing clients, from spouses of friends, from colleagues, from mothers groups. I have therapists that refer to me. So word of mouth is still number one. And I also do workshops. So I host some of my own. I have done some at places like General Assembly. And I also had the honor of giving a workshop at Grace Hopper, which is the largest conference for women in technology.
Great. And outside of the ability to scale, like you said, are there any other key challenges that you face in your business today?
Yeah, I think one of the hardest ones that I've had to tackle recently is being really comfortable getting my ideas and my voice out there, whether that's through blogging, whether that's through articles. I think something that happens as business owners and has happened for me is that because I am thinking about career all day, every day, there are sometimes when I think, do I actually have anything interesting to say? Is this new for people? To me, it's like, well, maybe this is common sense. So I think remembering that even though you are thinking about it all day, every day, it doesn't mean that it's not new and interesting for people who haven't been thinking about it. So really, trusting that your experience is interesting and you do have a lot of interesting and impactful things to be saying.
Well, before we go into the next section, I'd like to help people better leverage their most important asset, which is time. So if you go to blgdownload.com, you can get 3 killer tips. And also, having spent 26 years in sales, 18 of them at Coca-Cola, I know a few things about sales CRMs. We use Copper, and it integrates right into your Gmail, which Lindsay would know with her experience in Google, and it's easy to use. So you can find out more at buildlivegive.com/resources. So the next section, Lindsay, is around Live. So what are some of the daily habits that help you be successful?
Yeah, I have implemented a really structured schedule, which works really well for me. So I have clear hours that I see clients, clear hours that I don't see clients. I save Mondays for business strategy work. I also have kind of a goal setting system where I pick a very small number of goals per quarter, almost too small in a way, it feels like, really just 2 or 3 things, and give myself ample time to be able to work on each one. I have a sticky note above my computer that has my priorities on it. So things that I'm really focusing on this quarter at this moment, the priorities that I choose. And so I can be clear about what I'm saying no to, so that I can go really big on my priorities. And I think the other thing is creating a community of business owners so that I am in contact with the community and learning from others and getting to support other people and kind of getting really smart about how others are running their business too.
Excellent. Brian, your husband, what would you like to say to him? Actually, Brian is listening right now, I should say. So so Brian, welcome. But Brian, what would you like to say to Brian about the support he's given you through this journey?
I tell Brian this all the time, but I will tell him again that I appreciate him immensely. The roller coaster when I was first starting my business was so intense. One day I would be like, everything is awesome. My business is great. And then the next day I'd be like, oh my God, everything's broken. I'm never going to have a client ever again. And loving Brian would say, in the kindest way, weren't you just saying yesterday that everything was awesome? So he's just been such a kind of grounding force in all of this. And really the experience of building a business as a family has been really exciting and inspiring. He gets to learn through what I'm doing, and I get such great support from him, keeping me calm and motivated and grounded.
Brilliant. And the next section is the give section. So what's a community or a charity that you're passionate about, and why?
Yeah, I would like to give a shout out to the National Bailout. So there's a big problem in the US with for-profit bail. So an average of 60% of people that are held in local jails have not been convicted of the crime that they're accused of. And they're basically there because they're unable to pay this money bail. So nationalbailout.org is doing a lot of fantastic work to solve that problem. And another app that's really interesting is called Abolition. And so what they do is they automatically give your spare change from everyday purchases to help prevent people who are incarcerated because they can't afford bail.
Yeah, that I couldn't believe when you said that in the preset. There in the Philippines, which a lot of all of my team are based in the Philippines, so I can't believe those two. So I think that's a great cause, and we'll definitely have the links to that in the show notes. So the last section is the action section, where I'd just love your rapid fire responses. So the first one is, what are your top 3 productivity tips?
Yes. Number 1, clearly define your priorities for any given phase of your life or your business. 2, read the book Essentialism. The tagline is a disciplined pursuit of less, and it will scare you into, getting your priorities straight and saying a lot of no's. And then 3rd, I love this trick that I learned from a colleague, Chelsea. Start your day with this question of, today I will be successful if, and fill out really just the 1 to 3 things that you absolutely need to have happen to have that day be successful.
Brilliant. I love that. And what are some favorite apps or software that you use to run your business?
Yeah. One is, I actually love Pomodoro technique. And so tomato-timer.com is an app that I use to help me focus. I also use apps around, making sure I'm not on my phone too much. So ones that change it to grayscale or that time how much I'm spending on my phone. And then for my business, one thing that's so important to me is calendaring. And so I choose to use Acuity, but there are a lot of great options out there for helping you streamline your scheduling with clients.
Great. And what are some podcasts that you love to listen to?
I would say that How I Built This is my most recent kind of favorite one. And they actually have a great Facebook group associated that I think is called How You Built That.
Great. We'll once again put the links to that in the show notes. I haven't heard of that. I'm a huge listener of the podcast, but I didn't know there was a Facebook group. So that's
great. It's a good community.
Great. And the last question is, what impact would you like to leave on the world?
I think I've mentioned this a couple of times, but really, I would love to have people feel really good about their decisions. There is so much pressure in this world from all kinds of directions about what we should want to do at work, where we should work, what work should mean to us. And I would love for everybody to be able to assess for themselves, the answers to those questions and be able to make those decisions separate from all that pressure so that people are showing up to work in whatever way that looks like to them and contributing into whatever way that looks like for them.
Excellent. And look, you can find more about Lindsay and the great work she does. And she's also given a fantastic download to help with your priorities. So you can go to alifeofoptions.com/priorities. And we'll also put the links to her website and a LinkedIn profile. So Lindsay, fantastic to having you on the show. And as a fellow Australian born, I hope you have a great time when you visit your family here soon.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me.
Thanks, Lindsay. Bye.
Bye.
I really enjoyed this interview with Lindsay. So what were my 3 key takeouts? One is the importance of working with someone who has gone before you. So whether it's peers, whether it's a business coach, I think that's essential as you make the move out of employee to entrepreneur. The second is how to scale your system. So I know that Lindsay is getting challenged with that. And I know lots of people in our community do. So how do you figure that out? And the third thing is I loved her idea of a sticky note with the top 3 priorities. So it's really easy to say no. And I think that's the key skill you have to learn in running your own business. So you can get the key learnings and the show notes at buildlivegive.com/podcast. If you're a corporate escapee yourself and would love to share your story, just like Lindsay, email support@buildlivegive.com. Please take action from today and make a positive impact on the world.
Thank you for listening to the Corporate Escapees podcast, brought to you by Build, Live, Give. If you would like to join a community of like-minded peers, please visit www.buildlivegive.com. Until next time, thanks for listening and be brave.